You talked about Nike having the ability to own a first person perspective on what I wish I knew about training for my first marathon. And that's a way to introduce Nike as authority on marathons and maybe calls to action alongside shoes. So as we think about discovery, I know there's a lot in the air and there's a lot of conflicting thoughts out here, but like, is discovery you have to become an authority and expand that authority in order to play in that discovery space from search? Or are you saying discovery is happening only on other channels and not search?
I think it's both to a degree. I think training for a marathon, I think you can own that, but shoes, like, no way. So different topics have different maturities. And it's what I'm saying is that for very mature ecosystems and topics, like email marketing, you're never gonna punch above MailChimp, Constant Contact, HubSpot, whatever. Maybe in like 5 years when you really get an email marketing tool off the ground. But then you say, okay, if we're going after email marketing and we are a newer challenger in the space, I think you have to accept that you can't really produce as much discovery, but maybe within email marketing orchestration or automation, you can. And that's more of that middle of funnel, bottom of funnel. And you start there. Don't expect to go over to the head topic and win that. Build authority within email marketing and then maybe there. And then you just have to play within the bounds of how it all goes. And then I think final thought here is just that you should start yesterday. And if not yesterday, today. And you might say, oh man, the juice that I'm getting from the squeeze is like way worse. And it's like, yeah, that's why you want to start yesterday, because in 5 years, it's going to be even worse.
I guess you answered my next question, which was, is now the time to slow down or speed up? I think there's a lot of uncertainty out there. You're saying speed up, correct?
I'm saying slow down on the cookie cutter, whatever stuff, because that's on its way out. Yes, it still works, especially if you're a brand, but slow down on that and speed up on owning your niche, owning your topic, and yeah, start yesterday.
I think that's an important point as we get toward the end of here. If you're Salesforce, you can own the conversation around sales, but if you're a sales enablement niche platform, you can't, right? So what lane can you own and can you focus and add perspective, and to your point, add value to the conversation, not replicate some generic commoditized search that you shouldn't be owning anyway, especially if the information you're putting out there is already on the web. There's tools out there that can aggregate that information. So as a brand, focusing on specialization, the value you bring to the conversation, and narrowing the lane. If you're not Salesforce, narrow the lane and figure out where you can and should own. What inspires you about the future when it comes to both content and search?
I think what's inspiring is that the game is so dynamic. I think on one side of the coin, you could say, man, the juice is drier than it's ever been. And fee, fi, fo, fum, like all this change. But I think on the other side of the coin, you gotta think change is inevitable. And with great change comes fantastic opportunity. And so I'm optimistic in that I think, if anything, all that this is creating is a world that needs to produce more effort than it's ever produced to play in the game. The bar of what content should be is both lower than it's ever been to produce and increasingly higher than it's ever been to want to be consumed. And I think that there's a fantastic opportunity for anyone who is willing to put in the effort, put in the work, because now all of a sudden, I think you will be more rewarded for the details, for the effort. And I think it's a lot of hard work, but that is encouraging and that is important. And it's how everything works. Like back in the day, maybe producing a TV show commercial was cheap, but now you spend millions of dollars, even more than you would spend on the Super Bowl ad itself, to produce the content for the Super Bowl ad. And it's the same. And so I think the world benefits as a result of all of this effort, but only if you're willing to put in the work.